It's 9:02. I call the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority Board meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Masters?
Here.
Mr. McElroy? Here. Ms. Ortega?
Here.
Mr. Lindner?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Palacios?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Any public comment?
No, ma'am.
Number 2, adoption of minutes for the CRRMA board meeting of December 10, 2025.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, presentation, discussion, and action on the fiscal year 2025 audited financial report.
Good morning, Robert Studer, Director of Finance. For the record, very excited to share with you our audited financial report. You've got it in your backup. You have the report itself and you have the management letter from Gibson, Ruddock, Patterson. Our auditors with us today, we have Vanessa Alarcon and Sonia Sanchez, and they will provide an update to you all.
Good morning. We have a summary prepared on page 46 of the report, the hard copy. I believe if you're in the PDF, it's going to be about page 48. In there, we go ahead and we report that we have an unmodified opinion on the audit, which means it's a clean opinion. There are no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses reported, and we have not identified any material noncompliance, so we don't have any findings to report. We also conduct a federal single audit and a state single audit since the authority does receive those funds. And we also don't have any findings to report there. And we also have an unmodified opinion on the 2 major programs that we tested, which were the Highway Planning and Construction and the John Hayes Road Project. We also issue a management letter. We don't have any current year comments in there. And so pretty much when Sonia does the review and our staff, we pretty much get the questions answered accurately. And so we don't have anything formal to include in our management letter. There were a few discussions in the Finance Committee, some verbal items to discuss administratively and to revisit in next year's audit, but there's nothing formally to report. For the financials, I will take you over to page 14, which is the statements of net position. And you'll see overall, the entity here, I know we've got some new board members, or new board of directors, and the entity here is more of a project-based entity, and so our revenues aren't always in line with our expenditures. And what happens a lot of the times is the authority fills in whatever is needed by the partner. And so a lot of the times that's the debt. And so the authority, while it's constructing these projects, designing, constructing, the authority takes on the debt, but then that asset gets transferred out to the owner, to the project owner, and we're left with the debt. And so that's why we have this unrestricted net position that is a deficit. And if you work in any business, that's a big red flag. But for here, what's important to understand is that the funding to fund the future debt payments. And so there's a note in your financials, if you go to note 8, and it's at page, let's see, page 31 of the hard copy. You'll see in there the authority gets monies from the special vehicle registration fees, and it'll show how many of the fees were received. So in 2025, we received 6.9 million of fees, and our debt service payment was, we were responsible for 4.3 million in payments. So that's sufficient. The fees that are coming in are sufficient to pay the debt that's coming in. And then so as a member of the board, or a director of the board, that's important to understand, is that flow, and to make sure that the authority can continue to meet its debt payments. And as you can see, in both years, it was sufficient. And then the other situation is, as we continue to pay down any existing debt, that unrestricted net position improves. And so as we finished paying off some debt this last year as well. And so that's where you see that improvement of your unrestricted net position by another 10 million, where we were unrestricted of a deficit of 53.5 million in 2024, and now we're at 44.3 million this year. So it continues to improve, but it just depends on what projects are going on, what's on our side, and then once we transfer it. But the thing is to always ensure that there is funding, there's funding mechanisms, funding streams for any debt that's incurred. And all of that revenue has been pledged to the authority for the purposes of paying off that debt. And on your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, there's two things that I wanted to point out because they're a little bit different from what we've seen in the past. And the first is under your operating expenses, and this is under contracted management. You'll see that there's a zero amount reported in 2025. And the reason for that is because the contracted management services, which are the services that Raymond and Robert provide, those costs have been attributed to certain projects, and so instead of being expensed, they've been capitalized for those projects. So there's a note that we added in your financials, and it'll include what we had gross before we capitalize the contracted services versus what we capitalize and why it's zero in 2025. The other item on there has to do with the gain on termination of Border West agreements, and you'll see that that's a gain of 3.5 million. Back, I believe, in 2019, there was an agreement to extinguish the debt, but it was all verbal. We didn't have official agreements in writing. So on August 27th, before the fiscal year ended, Robert and Raymond were able to get those executed and signed, and so we were able to finally recognize that inflow and report the gain on your financials. So it was debt that didn't have to get repaid, and so we had to hold off till we had that officially in writing and we could recognize that on your books. Are there specific questions on the financials? I know we met with the Finance Committee last week. They had very good questions. It was a very good discussion. I really did enjoy the back and forth, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
In the audit, did you look at all at what, or did the Pelicano project affect your opinion at all? Because I think there's $138,000 in expenses there for 2025, with a large piece still sort of outstanding, unnegotiated potential risk, whether they can agree on an amount or not. Does that affect the audit opinion at all?
So there is a contingency disclosure as far as what's going on, but my understanding is there's a takeover agreement, and so that takeover agreement is paying off what the current expenses are, and then whatever beyond the costs of that are being kicked in by the county.
But there's no agreement on the second part yet, right? Because we don't even have the cost back.
Correct, not yet. But that's included in the contingency statement that she referenced.
Okay.
Yeah, the contingency statement notes the lawsuit, but that we don't have a good number to record as a future liability.
Yeah,
And
because
so-
your contingency amount wouldn't cover the cost of construction or potentially even the gap.
Right.
Okay.
But it is addressed. I can't remember which note it is off the top of my head, but it's like 12 or
it
13, I think.
Note 11.
Note 11.
Any
And that's
other questions?
been in there since the end of, I believe, fiscal year '23.
Any other questions? Ms. Masters, do you have anything from the Finance Committee?
No, I think when we had back and forth during the Finance Committee meeting, and I believe everything was addressed to our satisfaction. So I appreciate everything you all did and all the time and effort that you all put into it.
Ms. Ortega?
Just a quick question. Do you all make a recommendation or not on something like this? In terms of to approve the report as, or, let me check whether we have to, an action, yeah, we have to take action on it. Do you
Yes.
as a committee do that, make a recommendation?
Yes, we did. And we, I mean, after all the questions were answered to our satisfaction, then we made a recommendation to approve it and to bring it to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just like to thank Vanessa and Sonia for their help and support and their timeliness. As you may or may not know, the city, we're a component unit. They need to have this by now, which is why we moved the meeting. So thank you all for being flexible with your schedules. But thank you especially to them for moving on this quickly so that we could get it done and meet the city's timelines.
Yes, thank you.
But with that, I would ask for approval of the report. And as mentioned by Ms. Masters, the Finance Committee did review and does recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Any second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The audited financial report is adopted. Number 4, presentation, discussion, and action on board resolutions for the following CRRMA procurements: A, Fabens Airport Fuel Farm improvements, and B, Alamo Alto Trail Project Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Good morning. Raymond Tejas, Executive Director of the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority. We've got a couple of PowerPoints for you. I'll go through them pretty quickly as you'll recognize the format. This one deals with item 4A, which is the Fabens Airport Fuel Farm Project. This is part of your backup as well. So again, I will move pretty quickly. So this project was let back on December 11th of 2025. This is using Texas RAMP grant funds. Those are grant funds that come out of TxDOT to the county. In addition, we intend to use some county funds for this project as well. The RMA had managed the design and the procurement for this one, and will also manage the construction once we get into that phase. We used GEC teams for this one. Atkins, Realis completed the design, and HNTB is providing the oversight. Here's the location. Sorry, it's very sensitive. So the point of this project is to remove the existing fuel tank that's out there, and then come back with 2 new tanks, one with aviation gas and the second with Jet A gas. So this will expand the usage of the facility, we believe. It will also add self-service fuel option for the fuel tanks, and then some concrete pads to support, as well as new illumination. So this is as a reminder, this is part of the overall improvements that we're doing at Fabens as part of the county's relationship with UTEP. Here's some photos. On the left side shows the existing tank. On the right side, you'll see in gray where the new tanks will go. So the county is the ultimate owner. They'll provide the funding. The RMA is doing everything that I talked about before: design, procurement, and construction management. Here's the timeline. First advertised back in October, second in November. December, we opened bids, and we're here before you asking for authority to award to the low bidder, and then authorize staff to negotiate a construction contract. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we hope to be back in March at our March meeting. As a reminder, because our January meeting is so late, we probably will not need a February meeting. So we'll be back in March to authorize the execution of the construction contract, plus all the interlocal agreement amendments and work authorization amendments to actually implement. Timeline, we're thinking April we could start construction. It'll take about 3 months for this one, and we'll be done in summer. So here are the bid results. We had one bidder that provided a complete responsive bid at $1.4 million. Now you'll note the engineer's probable cost of construction, the estimate is lower. So we do have an issue there. And so that leads us into the motion. So what we're looking for from the board today is authorization to award to the low bidder, which is in this case Jordan Foster, but then also to authorize staff to negotiate a construction contract with the low bidder. So the idea here is we've got to look back at the scope, see if there's anything we can pull out, and see if we can come to agreement with the contractor. So that's what we're asking for you today, asking from you today.
I think it came in 400,000 higher than the estimate, right?
That's correct. Now, we do have some ideas as to how we can get down to where we need to be.
Yeah.
So we think we're optimistic about coming back in March with contracts.
Ms. Ortega?
In a situation like that, when you only have one bidder that submitted a complete bid, do you ever go back and request additional bids? Is that ever something that's considered or done?
We have, in fact, I believe this is the one that we went back and retooled the way that we put this procurement out. So originally, the procurement required TxDOT certification. That limits the pool of applicants that, or bidders that could come in on this one. We actually retooled that to make it broader with specifically a couple of different types of firms that could come in and bid on it. So we retooled this in order to cast a wider net. Unfortunately, we only got 2 bidders and one was not responsive.
And are you happy with the bid that they made, other than it's above what you wanted?
Other than the amount, the rest of it is
Yeah.
in line with what we're looking for, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, in March, you will likely see either a bunch of contracts with us having figured out a way to advance, or a rejection of bids and probably some sort of authorization to retool and put it back out there again.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Question.
Yes.
Ray, given that the cost is so much higher, was there a bust in a particular line item, or was it pretty much across all of the cost components?
We'll ask Mr. Fino from Atkins to share.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members, Edgar Fino, Atkins Reales. On the review there, Matthew, there was nothing that stood out in regards to a bust, in regards to an overrun. It was line items, yes, yes. Now, just as a reminder, the low bid contractor, Jordan Foster, is already working out there. They're on the hangar job, so they've got crews out there that makes.
So their mobilization cost should have been
Exactly, yes,
and they still came in 400 high.
correct.
And we are seeing that as a trend on most bids that are coming in these days.
Over.
And in fact, unfortunately, you're going to see that on the very next item as well.
Even if they're already on site.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it looks like the material pricing and that sort of thing is the increase. So I think if you'd like, I can jump into the next item and we can take them both together. So if we can bring up the slide deck for 4B. Okay, so this one deals with Alamo Alto Trail. This is phase 1 and phase 2. Same idea here. All of this is part of your backup, so I'll breeze through it. We're using transportation alternatives funding out of TxDOT for this one and county funds. The RMA managed the design and procurement, and ultimately, once we get to construction, we'll manage that as well. We used one of our IDC firms, AECOM, for this one to develop the design plans, and Atkins Reales provided the oversight. Here's a project location. Again, this is part of your backup. So this one includes the 2 phases that I mentioned. Phase 1, which includes the trail portions that are found within Fabens, Texas, and phase 2 is the trail within Tornillo. Now, as a reminder, we also are developing phase 3, which is the piece that connects Fabens to Tornillo. So we're really excited about these pieces that are all part of the Paso del Norte Trail that the Paso del Norte Health Foundation is putting together. So it's over 60 miles worth of trail within El Paso County. So we're excited to be part of that. But it's the usual things that you would expect on a trail like this, full shared use path with all of those improvements that you see there. County is the ultimate owner, provides funding. RMA manages and provides all those services we talked about. Here's the timeline on this one. November, we put out the advertisement 1st and 2nd, and then bids were opened on the 16th of December. And again, we're looking to the board for authorization to award and then authorization to negotiate a contract and come back in March. That's the goal. This one we think is going to take about 12 months, so if we start in April, we'll be done sometime in spring of 27. All right, so this one, again, you're going to see the same issue. The low bidder on this one was Horizon. They came in at 4.7. The engineer's probable cost of construction was 3.9. We do have some ideas on this one as well in terms of how we can reduce that cost. So again, and I'll bring you back to this, but the motion would be twofold. One, to select Horizon Construction Limited as the lowest responsible bidder, and then also to authorize staff to negotiate a construction contract with the low bidder, but more importantly, to come back. So we will be back in March If we're able to figure it out, we'd be back in March with the construction contract, with interlocal amendments to provide the funding from the county, and then work authorization amendments for our design team and the oversight team as well. So same idea as the last one. Low bid came in high, so we're gonna try to negotiate to get to something. If we can't, very similar to the last one, we'll be back with a motion to reject and authorize some sort of way forward that we work out with the county. Both of these projects are with the county, so we're working with them very closely to identify the way forward. Happy to answer any questions, otherwise we would recommend.
I do have a question.
Yes,
On,
ma'am.
when it says incomplete, what does that mean? In other words, they started it and then they just didn't finish it, or what does that mean?
On these, I'll ask Edric to speak on specifics, but generally that means they were missing a form, they were missing some sort of documentation that's required to be a complete submittal. Edgar, do you remember the specifics on this one?
Good morning, Ed Rufino again. No, not the specifics, but usually it's a document that's required, that there's no signature, or there's a missing document that's required, that's not included in the contractor package. Some examples are
Insurance.
well, usually that,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Child support. thank
yeah,
you.
child
That's-
support,
that's a
yeah,
big
child
one that gets
support.
left
That
out.
document usually, well, it's needs to be included, and some of the contractors do not provide that document as far as being signed and acknowledging that they will support the child support in regards to making sure their employees are following what they're supposed to be paying out. So they're important documents that are part of the front end of the package, and it's our job as far as the GEC to review to make sure that the documents are provided that are called for on the bid package.
So then you go back to them and you say, we're missing X, Y, and Z, and they just don't respond?
No.
No, ma'am. So it depends on the type of documentation or the type of item that's missing, but things like we were discussing right now, if that's
Right.
not submitted, that's an incomplete bid and it cannot be supplemented later.
Oh, okay.
There are some very minor items that could be supplemented or
Uh-huh.
clarified, but there's a fine line there that the lawyers get involved in.
Oh, okay.
So when you come back, I'll move to approve. When you come back for both of them, when you come back with these, given that you're talking about, over 20% differences, will you describe what the change in the scope is if you're able to negotiate for each of the two contracts?
Yes, definitely. In fact, the scope that was described in these PowerPoints was the original scope, and we know if we come back, we're gonna have to pull stuff. So that would be part of the presentation next month.
Okay, I'll move to approve both items.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Both motions carry. And item 5, discussion and action on board resolution to authorize the execution of an advance funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation for the Sun Cycle Bike Share Fleet Enhancement Project, fiscal year 2026.
Okay, this is a good news item. As you may recall, we've gone after grant funding for the Sun Cycle program for the last few years. We've received it over fiscal year 24 and 25, and we've also received it, we received word last year that we would receive funding for fiscal years 26, 27, and 28. We're using those funds each year to slowly replace the red bikes, the original bikes, with the electric assist bikes. So Robert's going to have some really good news on the update, the quarterly update for Sun Cycle in terms of what we think those new bikes are doing in terms of usage and revenues. But for item 5, this is seeking authorization for staff to negotiate and ultimately execute the advanced funding agreement with TxDOT to implement this fiscal year 26 fleet enhancement project. So what we're looking at is roughly $100,000 coming from the grant program, matched by $25,000 of RMA funds, and that amount was built into the most recent budget. So I would ask for approval of this item. I did include a copy of the fiscal year 25 advanced funding agreement, so you could see a sample of what's coming as part of your backup. But happy to answer any questions, otherwise I would recommend approval.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department for the Weiler Aerial Tramway Project and the negotiation and execution of the resulting agreements.
Okay, this one is a little bit odd. I've been back to you all, I want to say several months back, asking for authorization to execute an interlocal agreement amendment to pull down the $7 million that were allocated to the project from the legislature in this last session. However, and that had been negotiated with Texas Parks and Wildlife. However, Parks, I guess they were reevaluating the source of those funds. Apparently the legislature, when they allocated those funds, it went into a grant program that Texas Parks and Wildlife manages. So that means the RMA actually has to apply for the funds, even though we're the only ones that are eligible for it and that sort of thing. But what you see here is more kind of a hurdle we have to go through, and that is seeking authorization from the governing board for the submittal of a grant application for that $7 million. So that's what you see before you. I would ask for approval of this item.
Any questions?
Question. So is this grant application something that's complicated, or is it a simple?
Well, it's not simple because, well, I should say it's pretty straightforward, but what we're doing doesn't fit into the format that they have, so they're having to tweak it. So I've already gone in. We are now an eligible applicant, but in order for me to complete the form, they have to fill in some blanks that don't really fit for the project that we're trying to complete. So it's a little bit of it just doesn't fit well. So it has been a little more cumbersome than it should be. But it's not difficult. There's not a whole lot of heavy lifting to do. It's just trying to make it work for the funds that we're trying to pull.
And when the funds were allocated, is it a sure thing, or if somehow something goes wrong with the grant application, the monies won't be released?
No, I've been assured that this is just a procedural step we
It's a
have to
red
take.
tape?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bureaucratic step we have to do, but I've been assured along the entire process that we will receive these funds. We just have to do this extra step in the middle.
Okay.
And so I'll be back to you, I'm assuming, well, actually, I think I asked for authorization to execute any resulting agreement. So I think Parks is leaning towards an interlocal amendment that would match up with the prior interlocal amendments that we pulled down for the prior funding that we received, in addition to a grant agreement that would then be an appendix to the interlocal agreement. So again, it's a little more convoluted than I'd like, than anybody would like, but apparently, according to their attorneys, the funding source dictates this.
Okay, so move.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to the interlocal agreement with the University of Texas at El Paso on behalf of its Hunt Institute for Global Competitiveness for the Tornillo Guadalupe Port of Entry study.
Okay, this is a pretty straightforward one. We're just extending the term on this one for the Hunt Institute. The original agreement had an earlier ending date. However, some of the engagements and site visits that were originally planned in this program have been pushed out, so we're extending the date out to October of '26. No cost impact whatsoever, so I would recommend approval.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the El Paso County for the Pelicano Drive widening project.
Okay, very briefly, I'll use this opportunity to just mention that Pelicano the construction is underway and doing really well. A lot of progress happening out there. In fact, they are laying asphalt in the section from Loop 375 down to Sunfire. They're laying asphalt this week and into next week, depending on the weather. And then they'll start laying rebar on top of that asphalt in February. And then we'll move to concrete placement shortly thereafter. So really excited about that first piece down to Sunfire. This is showing some great progress. We have a great partner in the county on this one. As you know, they are shooting some video and photographs through one of their drones, so I'm hoping to get my hands on that, and I'll share that with you as soon as we have it. So making a lot of progress, very excited about that. But for the item before you, which is item 8, there is an adjacent developer in the area, Faith Technologies, that is, I guess they've negotiated an agreement with the county where they're going to add some traffic lights, they're going to add decel lanes and some other improvements along Pelicano. Normally, when that happens, the developer pays for that, and that is the agreement that has been structured between the county and the developer. However, since the RMA is out there, the county is asking that we roll those improvements into phase 2 of the project. As you know, we're currently building phase 1, then we'll come back with phase 2. So what you see before you under item 8 is a memorandum of understanding laying out the idea that the improvements that the county is required of the developer will be rolled into phase 2 as an ad alternate. Again, the intent is just to lay out the idea and the concept here. The funding would be provided entirely by the developer and rolled into the project and managed by the RMA. So that's what item 8 is. Happy to answer any questions, but I would recommend approval of this item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8 carries. Item 9, Raymond,
So
Okay,
this one,
delete it.
unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask you to delete it. Horizon City is reevaluating their options on this project, so I would ask for a deletion.
and we need a motion.
Yes, please.
I'll move.
Joyce moved. I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, item 9 is deleted. Item 10, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to work authorization number 40 with Atkins Realis USA, Inc. for the Valley Chili Road reconstruction project.
This one is also pretty straightforward. Originally, when we were putting this program together, Atkins Realis intended to self-perform some of the construction management activities on this project. However, between when we planned this project and actually got to construction, their crews have been assigned to other projects. So Atkins is bringing on a third-party JMT to provide these construction management services. So there's no cost impact. What you see as the amendment is simply swapping out the exhibit that identifies, instead of being self-performed by Atkins, it's being provided by JMT. Again, no cost impact, so I would recommend approval of this item.
Move. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item 10 carries. Number 11, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to work authorization number 2 with ACOM Technical Services, Inc. for the Alamo Alto Phase 3 project.
I mentioned this one earlier. Phase 3 is the piece of the trail that connects Fabens to Tornillo, which were phases 1 and 2. This one is a small amendment to add some design activities necessary to relocate illumination poles that are in the clear zone of the roadway. So this is normally when you have, as explained to me, normally illumination poles are owned and moved by the electric company. These are actually owned by the county, so this was a bit of an oversight at the front end. But you see an amendment before you for about $11,000. I would recommend approval of this item.
Is that cost covered by the county? The
Yes, sir.
Additional 11,000, okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Number 11 carries. Number 12, we were going to delete that, Raymond?
Yes, ma'am. There's been a change on the proposed change order, so I would ask that this item be deleted as well.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor to delete item 12?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 12 to be deleted. Number 13, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing submission of an annual compliance report to TxDOT.
Okay, this is a pretty straightforward, and this one we do every year. TxDOT requires certain compliance requirements. One is an annual report that we provide at the end of December of each year. That was completed. And then this compliance report relates to various other requirements that we have to do, including the annual audit. So we can't do this until we accept the annual audit. So that's why you see this one before you today. I would recommend approval. I believe everything is included in your backup, including the form, the letter, and the resolution. So would recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 13 passes. Number 14, discussion and action on the following reports for the first quarter of fiscal year 2026. A, interim financial statement. B, investment report. C, El Paso Bike Share Sun Cycle Program. And D, general engineering consulting team's use of local resources.
So the Finance Committee reviewed all the reports and did recommend that the board accept the reports, so I'm not going to go through them one by one, but I did want to provide a couple of key highlights that Mr. Tejas mentioned. So on the interim financial statement, usually the first quarter we don't have a lot of activity just due to the nature of invoicing and timing, so there's not a lot of activity. We didn't spend a lot of time at the board. On item B, the investment report, I would point out that the Fed is meeting today. They did cut rates a few times in the fall. That impacts our investment returns as we are constrained on what we can invest in. And then the Treasury Services Coordinator for the city, Louis Meyer, who is named as one of our investment officers, retired in November. And the interim is a woman named April Shammy. I've got a great relationship with her, and we've no issues there whatsoever. She may get the job, and they may hire somebody else, but we'll continue to work with that person overseeing our investments. On item C, the bike share program, this is the one Mr. Tay has alluded to. We saw fantastic numbers in the first quarter. Every one of our stations outperformed the prior first quarter of the year before, and we are seeing just that's not happened previously. Usually you get some that go up, some that go down, but we think the ubiquity of the e-bikes being placed throughout the system, as we added 73 during the prior year through the grant program that was item 6, I believe. That is just helping and growing ridership. We've also got a handful of annual, monthly, and semester members that are really using the system, and so we are thrilled to see that kind of growth. But the bike share is doing well. On item D, no real comments, but we do have data from both HNDB and Atkins in there now, and again, the Finance Committee reviewed the reports in depth and did recommend approval. And with that, I would recommend the board accept the reports.
Ms. Masters, anything from the Finance
No,
Committee?
we like Robert said, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, but because there wasn't a lot of action, but we're very, very pleased with the way the performance is for the Sun City Bike Program. And I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Items 14A through D carry. Item number 15, staff reports. A, new CRRMA employee. B, reminder of officer elections. And C, annual project report 2025.
Okay, a couple of quick reports. The first one notes the new employee. So as you know, we've been looking for an employee for a little while. We received quite a bit of interest. I believe in the end, we had 26 different resumes for this position. I'm happy to report that we have offered, and Mr. Sal Alonso has accepted the position. So some of you all may remember Sal. He was with the county for, I want to say, over 10 years. Most recently, he's been with TxDOT, so he's got a lot of local experience in transportation and certainly state and federal experience as well. So we're really excited to bring Sal into the fold. His start date is next Monday, in fact. So very excited about that. And we'll introduce you to him at the March meeting. Item B then is just a quick reminder. Our bylaws require us to do officer elections each year, and that happens in February. As we're not meeting in February, that'll push it to March. So keep that in mind as we move forward. If you're interested, perhaps you could reach out to the chair, and we can discuss that in March. That's just a brief reminder, and part of your backup includes that section of the bylaws, so you can review that if you're interested. And then lastly, we've got a brief PowerPoint with just a couple of slides. At the chair's request, we've been doing this at the end of each year or the beginning of the year to review the prior year. So we've got some new maps for you. This is intended to show you all of the different projects that we've been involved in to date. So the green ones are those that are already completed, and I guess it's an orange color maybe. This show the active ones, the ones that we were involved in 2025. So it shows quite a bit of activity over the last year. The column over on the left shows some interesting details for you as well. We had more than 50 active projects in this last calendar year. And then 12 different partner agencies, and that's really important. We've been partnering at the direction of the board with some of the smaller communities, but then you also see TxDOT, Texas Parks, UTEP, MCA, some of the larger entities in the region as well. Certainly El Paso County is our largest partner for sure. So you see a lot of coordination and cooperation among agencies to get these projects done. Then the last point there is that we are multimodal as required by the board as well. So we're looking at road, transit, pedestrian, bike, and aviation projects as well. So a lot of variation and certainly a lot of work completed over the last year. So that's kind of a snapshot. I'll touch very briefly on a couple of projects that I think are of interest. There on the left side, the box that says Rick Francis Street, you may recall, that's the grant program that we went after certain funding from TxDOT for to develop an underpass at Rick Francis Street within the MCA. That one was submitted, I want to say, a couple weeks back, so we're very excited about that one, and we're really hopeful. Beyond that, Weiler, of course, we talk about regularly. That's a big project for us, and the streetcar was actually completed in 2025, and that's a project closeout. So a couple of highlights there, and I'm happy if any of these catch your attention, you want to dive into the details, please stop me along the way. But this is now part of your backup. I added it just last night or this morning, so it's a late addition. I apologize for that, but we're tweaking it up until this morning. But it's part of your backup. Feel free to review it, and I'm happy to tweak it going forward. So on the east side, here's a map that focuses in on some of our important projects. Pelicano we talk about regularly, so I'll skip that for now. But the EPATS transit facility is a really big project for the El Paso area transit system. That's the one where we have completed the right-of-way acquisition for them. We acquired a parcel for a little over $1.5 million. We also did a needs assessment for them to identify what their transit operation system would need. And from there, we've actually begun the design. So we're at about, I believe, 30% of the design for that project. It's a really important project for them as they expand their system and they develop their first maintenance and operation facility. So we're excited to be part of that one. Down in the lower valley, focus there is on the Fabens Airport. And of course, we've talked about a few of those projects. The box hangars is essentially done. We're just waiting for the electric company to connect to the facility so we can do some final checks on some items and close out that project. Very excited to be involved in that one. The AWAS system, the Automated Weather and Observing System, is up and running now. We're excited to announce that. So a lot of improvements we've made out there that is going to help the county and UTEP partnership. So that's going really well. And then another one I'll note is the Thornhill Port of Entry study that we're doing. We talked about that one earlier today, but that's a really important initiative that the county is pursuing to increase usage of the Thornhill Port of Entry. So we're excited to be part of that as well. And I guess that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Hopefully that was useful to you. It's part of your backup. If you have any questions, please review it. And yes, ma'am.
Are you, and I know you've discussed this in the past, but you're the one that does all of the grant writing? Or do you get people to assist on that?
So on the Rick Francis grant application, there were two steps. There was a preliminary that was pretty straightforward, and I handled that one on my own.
Okay.
But then the more detailed, the second step is called a detailed application, and that one we brought on HNTB. In fact, I meant to do this, and I just realized I didn't. I'll share with you a copy of that application so you can see everything that was put into it. But HNTB did the heavy lifting on that one. HNTB has also done grant writing for us on the Howard Low project, which is in Horizon City, and that's a pedestrian improvements to a section down there that will connect to their trails system. Did a great job on that one. In fact, Horizon City was awarded those funds, and we're hoping to bring a design and construction contract back to you for that one. And HNTB also did a grant application for Phase 4 of the Paso Norte Trail system, and the county was successful on that one using HNTB's application. So generally, the answer is we'll use a consultant to do it, but if it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy, like Texas Parks and Wildlife grant application that we talked about earlier, or the first step on the other one we just talked about, Rick Francis, then I will handle that.
So when you hire a consultant to actually do the grant writing, is it paid by the entity depending on who you're working with?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
With the exception of Rick Francis. So that one was brought to you all asking if you wanted to participate in it. So that one is done, is paid for by the RMA. Outside of that, Horizon City has paid for Howard Low, the county paid for Paso Norte, et cetera. That's all I have for you.
Any other questions? And there's no action on item 15.
No, ma'am.
Item 16, discussion and action regarding right-of-way acquisitions and the potential use of eminent domain for the Montwood Drive Extension Project, including consultation with attorneys and deliberation regarding real estate in executive session. So it's 9:48.
Excuse me, can I get
Go
you to
ahead.
read that, read item 18 as well?
Okay.
Yes, please.
The CRRMA Board will recess regular session and convene an executive session to deliberate on agenda items pursuant to Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real estate, regarding right-of-way acquisitions for the Montwood Drive Extension Project, including the use of eminent domain, but will reconvene in regular session to take any associated actions.
And if I could give a little bit of background. So we are asking that we go into executive session on items 16 and 18 to discuss some right-of-way acquisitions that we're doing on behalf of the City of El Paso for the Montwood project. Item 17, this is the first time we've used executive session for right-of-way acquisitions, and so we're doing it a little bit different. I think I could do it better next time. Item 17 is a general item that's always included in the agenda that allows us to go into executive session for any items that are accounted for on the agenda. However, our attorney that's assisting us with the eminent domain item has asked that we put a specific executive session item for this, which is item 18. So in truth, what I should have done is deleted 16. We could have had no action on 17 and then moved to 18 and moved into executive. So I apologize for the confusion first time, so I beg your pardon on that.
It's okay, I was just, you skipped it and didn't.
Yes, ma'am, a little confusing. So with that, if there's no questions, then I would ask the chair to read the executive session script into the record.
So the time is now 9:49 a.m. on January 28, 2026, and the CRRMA Board of Directors will now retire into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 552.072 for the purpose of consultation with an attorney and deliberation regarding real property. We will reconvene the open meeting upon conclusion of the executive session. It is now 10:24 a.m. on January 28, 2026, and the Board of Directors of the CRRMA is reconvening its open meeting after deliberations in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.072. The board consulted with its attorney but took no action in executive session. And so now we're seeking a motion on item 16.
18.
18, to approve board resolutions to acquire parcels 2, 12, 14A, and 14B by eminent domain if necessary from the Montwood Drive Extension Project.
Motion? Oh, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Yes, ma'am, that's all I have for you.
And then 17 is no action?
No action,
Okay.
correct.
And so just a motion to adjourn?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And meeting is adjourned at 10:25 a.m.